Hi, I'm Sarah with How to Help Mom, and today I am with
Melissa Pilzner.
And Ryan Cohen.
And we make investing personal.
So I have to be transparent with you guys. I always tell people that we vet vendors and we work with them, and my family and I have worked with their company, and we've been very, very happy with the results that we've had. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about for seniors is first getting to know you. How did you guys get into being financial professionals?
Well, I would say we both have different journeys, but I'd say a lot of similarities that we wanted careers where we could help individuals and families, that we really wanted something where we can make an impact and see that something that we're both very good at, which happens to be finances, budgeting, different things in those realms, that we can help other people that it isn't their strength, and help make them more comfortable with their day-to-day lives, knowing that they're going to have enough money to live off of, and just really, it's just nice. It's a great feeling to be able to know that you can just really help set someone on a good pathway to live a comfortable retirement.
Yeah, it's nice to see a lot of folks, they work really, really hard. They build up a good nest egg. And when they can, take their foot off the brakes and, start retiring and relaxing, sort of depends on what they do with that nest egg. So I really like being able to sit down with people and buy them as much time as we possibly can to retire and, just sort of relax and enjoy life after putting in such hard work.
And that's important for a lot of people, is figuring out what they're going to do in retirement. What would that look like for you guys if, say, hey, I'm getting ready for retirement, I don't know what I'm going to be doing, and a lot of times the people that we work with, it's like they want to retire, but they're taking care of kids, or their kids are like adult children, and they're planning for maybe some of their kids' plans, and then they're also taking care of a parent. So is there a process that you guys go through when you're bringing them in to start that conversation?
Yeah, I would say that we work with people that are in all stages of the journey. So some people come in and they've never talked to any type of professional, a tax professional, financial, an attorney before, and that they don't know where to start. And so what we usually suggest is just, first off, it's never too young to start talking to someone. That for themselves, for their children, their parents even, you can start in your 20s, 30s, 50s, even 60s and 70s. We've helped people start. But the key, I would say, is just to not be embarrassed and to take that first step forward, to really just find someone that you will know and trust and be able to work well with, and be open and honest about what they're going through, I think is key. Because so much of what we do goes back to their expenses, their lifestyle, what their goals are, how they want to leave assets. And it's just, the more honest they are with us and the more information that they give us, the more we can help them actually make sure that they're on track and that they're working towards those goals.
Yeah, I know a lot of times what we see is, especially with the Generation X, is a lot of times they're helping plan for, their parents who are, getting to a certain age where they need more care, but they also have children who potentially got a little bit of a later start compared to when they were out on their own or finished school. So we're really comfortable sitting down, to Melissa's point, with multi-generational situation. Sometimes those Gen X folks need to plan for, how they're going to help their parents, but then also how they're going to integrate that with still helping out their children as they get on their feet. So again, just very comfortable sitting down and kind of talking through each individual case.
Gotcha. And if, say, I'm trying to get my family together and have like a family financial plan, what are some documents or things that I should kind of have ready for you when I'm coming to have our initial meeting?
Yeah, so the first thing would be any financial accounts you have. So that could be things like retirement assets, IRAs, 401ks, any life insurance policies you might have. Any other, we call them sometimes non-taxable accounts, or any other type of non-retirement accounts you might have. The first step would be taking all those statements and bringing them to the meeting, so that way we can take a look at your whole financial picture.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, and I would say besides that, usually the key element a lot of areas circle around are those expenses. So a budget, so knowing generally what you're spending each month. It's very difficult because some people, they know it down to the T, and others they say, well, I like to vacation, my meals, my groceries, they vary. So in those cases, just trying to have as close of an approximation as you can is very helpful, because that really is, I'd say, the pivotal center point of a lot of the retirement planning that we do.
Yeah, I like what you brought up too. Like, some people really have an idea of I want to travel, I want to do these things. And I think you probably get some people who are like, I want to retire, but I don't know if I can. And I know we're talking about retirement a lot right now. We'll talk about other things, but what does that look like if somebody comes into you and they have kind of kicked the can down the road because you almost don't want to know, like, can I retire, can I not? What do you look at and how do you guys make those decisions together?
Yeah, so there are many factors we look at as we're sort of gathering all the inputs we need to help come up with a plan for somebody. We kind of think of the plan as a model. We're trying to model your financial picture. So we're trying to make sure that every detail we need that would affect that model is integrated. Once we sort of have that picture built, a lot of times we're able to talk through different scenarios.
Okay.
So sometimes getting to your goal as soon as possible is what you want to do. Sometimes it's maximizing how much you want to spend or travel in retirement, or it could be, maximizing longevity. If you think you're going to, live into your late 90s, we want to make sure that you have enough. So a lot of times once we build that, we can optimize.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to say it. And I think a thing that our team really does differently is we like to show people a couple different pathways. So you can choose to retire early, but it might mean you don't get to take as many trips as you want. Or you can choose that you want to spend a lot more money, take more time off over your working years, but that you might need to do a part-time job or do something a little longer before you're ready to fully retire. But we try to really show them, here's a couple different scenarios, but each one, just like most things in life, have pros and cons. So we help them look at, well, what would be the pros and cons of each of these different scenarios, and then help them pick the one that they're most comfortable with. And I think that's nice compared to, I think a lot of people picture it as you come in and you just get this magic envelope or answer.
Yeah.
And it isn't that way because we don't know, again, what's inside, your heart and your dreams and your goals.
Right.
And we want to help you pick what you're most comfortable with.
So we've talked about being able to plan and retire, which is great. And I want to take us a little bit chronologically. What about post-retirement? So we get into a situation and you've planned for how people are going to kind of preserve their wealth. So maybe since we've gone from this like ideal, we get to plan, what about kind of emergency situations where maybe somebody didn't plan? Because I know that you said, it's never too late, don't be embarrassed. What happens if mom or dad take a fall and we don't have everything organized? Is there a process that we can use, or maybe some options that people have had before for situations like that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways to look at it, but you're right. There are a lot of situations that we've come across with individuals that not only are trying to prepare for their own retirement situations, but now they've got an elderly parent that all of a sudden is thrust into their care that they need to make all these decisions for.
Yeah.
And it can be a lot. And that's where, in those situations, we really like to start similar to other situations we've described, but that we like to look at the situation and start by analyzing what they currently have. So if they haven't done any planning, have they done at least any saving? Do they have a house at least, maybe that's paid off? I'd say a good asset, a lot of seniors we come across at least usually do have a home that they've lived in a long time that's been paid off. So that's something we can work with or help the family work with. And then we really try to dive in on what are the options, because if they haven't saved, we always joke that, they're going to need the services one way or another. And so if they haven't saved, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's then on someone else to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so it's just in those scenarios that what we want to do is try to take the burden the most off the family that we can, find strategies to help them optimize what their parent may have, and find good compromises. Maybe it's not being in the most expensive, living community around, but finding a place that they get good, decent care, but it's affordable within their budget. And really just trying to look down those pathways to ensure that their loved one is taken care of, but that the family isn't going to lose their entire life savings paying, because some of these situations can be very expensive. So in the far extremes, working with them towards Medicaid and maybe getting qualified or looking at that as a backup option if the family can't fund has been another common way that we've seen some families take care of that situation where a loved one maybe didn't plan as well as they should have.
So we talked about, okay, if they haven't been able to plan. And then there's also the scenario of, okay, I have planned, I've saved this money, I haven't spent all of it. What are some situations where a lot of people want to pass on their legacy to their children? Are there specific ways at like certain ages you have to have something structured, or are there different ways? What are the different ways that you've seen people be able to do that?
Yeah, sure. So it really just depends on to your point, the age and sometimes other situations or factors of the heirs you're gonna, leave those assets or that property to. So a lot of times what we see with younger children, you want to make sure you have documentation, legal documentation in place, so that way you know who's going to take care of your children, but then also usually a trust or some other type of vehicle to make sure that somebody isn't just inheriting that money outright at such a young age, that there's some direction and some discretion as to how they're going to receive those funds to make sure they live. When somebody's, when all your children are grown up, if you're looking to leave, your assets or your property to your children, things are a little bit different. Depending on your, tax and your asset situation, you might not need that trust or some of those other documents. But really, you can pass things along at any age. The thing to keep in mind is it gets really nuanced. There are certain ways that you can pass things along where you minimize the taxes or the costs that those heirs end up having to incur in order to receive those assets. Every situation's different, but we recommend integrating that as part of sitting down with us and doing a consultation. We want to make sure that we set things up in such a way that we not only get everything to those heirs smoothly, but minimize all costs incurred in order to do so.
Yeah.
And there's one simple thing that almost anyone can do as long as you have a financial bank account, an account anywhere, is just making sure your beneficiaries listed. Very simple. Almost every place is part of a new account application. And a lot of times you can list not only one tier, but multiple tiers. So say that you leave it to a sibling, to a spouse, but if something happened to both of you, you can list a second tier of who would inherit it after that. And it's one of the simplest things, but if you don't list it, we commonly have people come in and they have nothing listed on their accounts. And all that means is in those situations, it's then going to go to probate, which can be a lengthy and costly situation, but then beyond that, you're leaving it up to courts to decide who gets it, versus you expressing your wishes now on who you'd want to have it, whether it's your children, your grandchildren. We just had someone that left it all to a best friend that took care of her up until she passed, and the best friend had no idea and was just so floored, and the point of the story is just that, but she made sure that the money went to who meant the most to her in her life. And to me, I go, there's nothing more impactful than being able to do that for someone.
Absolutely. And to be frank, it's traumatic when somebody passes and then to have to go through a court procedure after. So obviously I deal with that in real estate realm, but it's nice that you kind of have yourself as this financial team where you don't see yourself as a one set, but you do work with accountants, with estate planners, so that everybody's on the same page. And what I really appreciate is you also ask those questions, because you might have wanted somebody to have, all of your things, and then your life changes. You get married. You have, you might have had one kid when you set yourself up. But if I'm meeting with a financial advisor every year, they can remind you, I don't know if you remember, but when we started, you had one. Now you've got three. Do you have a favorite and you want to keep it that way?
Yes.
Or do we, spread the love a little bit?
Sure.
So
especially then when they start having kids, and then you have to factor in the grandkids and different levels. It definitely can get very complicated.
And the complication goes, your intention is good, you're leaving your legacy, but your legacy might unintentionally be kind of pitting siblings against each other, like that lack of clarity. So having somebody in your corner like that can really help your family after you're gone as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly, because I'm sure the last thing that, I at least just speaking for myself, that I would want is to leave a situation where everyone is fighting and in chaos. And we've seen people lose touch and not want to be in each other's lives after because of how bitter it got, because things weren't titled properly, they weren't organized, the parents or whoever left the assets did it in such a way that they said, I hate when we hear this, but I hear, well, I'm dead, so what does it matter?
We hear it all the time.
And it happens, and it's just, there's not much you can do in that situation, but unfortunately it leaves a situation where those that come in after the fact, it's a lot of chaos.
It can be a mess if you don't.
Maybe that's their legacy, is like, now you deal with it.
I could definitely see that. For some people.
Well, for the people who want to plan and have this stuff done, you guys are a wonderful resource. Or to plan to surprise people, they can also plan that with you.
But as Melissa mentioned, at a minimum, just make sure you have those direct beneficiaries and everything, so you avoid the most amount of hassle in the long run.
And the yearly gentle reminders from you folks to do
Absolutely.
that. You guys are making investing personal, and I know that you can't get specific about strategies because it's personal about what each person's individual scenario is. But in general terms, are there, some general ways to segment how you're retiring or how you're aging or things that, people should be aware of as they're moving into retirement, into planning, for their golden years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say as time goes on and you get closer to the point in your journey where you're looking to retire, you tend to want to go from investment choices that have a lot of risk associated with them, but a lot of growth potential, to investments that help you lock in the type of lifestyle and plan that you want to live now. So what that comes down to is finding investments where maybe the maximum amount of growth isn't necessarily the stated goal, that you can maybe either limit some of that risk or find investments that focus on income as the goal. So what you want to do is you want to segment your plan in such a way that the money that you're needing to live in the more immediate term has less potential to go way up or way down than the money that you might need later on, say,
Gotcha.
15 years from now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to say it. And I think the biggest thing is that we commonly get asked, for my age or my situation, what should I be doing? And that is tying back to what you were saying at the start of this question. That's where that challenge comes in, because there isn't one size fits all for everyone. It's not because you're 70, you should be in this level, or 50 in this. It's really, what we joke is, what helps you sleep at night? What is going to help you feel comfortable? If you can stomach seeing bigger waves, okay, then you can afford to take on a little more risk sometimes. But if you can't, that's okay. And there's other options that aren't going to be as volatile up and down ongoing. And it might mean a little bit more slower, steady growth. But the thing is, we tell people to really be honest with yourselves and with the people that you work with about where your comfort level lies, and then find that right balance. And sometimes even with a couple we'll work with, they'll have completely opposite preferences, and we'll do completely different strategies for each of them. But the thing is that we want to cater it to each particular person, because that really is the best to ensure the longest, I think, success, in my opinion, because it's what you're comfortable with and what you can stick with.
And you had mentioned maybe, one spouse wants to do something one way and one wants to do it another way. We work a lot with families where the kids are involved, or, the control over the money at some point shifts from the parent to their adult children. Are there systems in place for that, or documentation that they typically do, or companies that they work with that you work with closely? How does that process work typically?
Yeah. There's a couple different kinds of documents. I would say that we're obviously not attorneys or estate planning professionals, but that a lot of times, like, we'll have people come in with power of attorney documents, or other ones where you can also add additional people on your accounts directly. So
Gotcha.
that we'll see those as common ways that, as we have more elderly clients that can't really either come in for appointments, that they don't maybe have the mental capacity to make these decisions anymore, whatever it may be, that a lot of times that those are usually the first steps to having other people on their accounts while they're still alive. And then after the fact, again, having good beneficiaries listed on there for who would take care of the accounts after is very key. But I would say that you can still have people come into appointments even if they're not on the accounts too. So we strongly encourage, for a lot of our clients that are going to be even 70 and older, that we have at least 1 or 2 meetings with their adult children, or other loved ones that are helping take care of them. Just because if something did happen, or if some situation occurred where they weren't able to access our accounts, these people might need to get money out for them or help them in those cases.
That brings up a great point. So bringing in adult children to meetings. How does that happen? When does that happen?
Yeah, and that's something that we really think is important, because if something were to happen, these individuals might need to help them access the money, make decisions, and overall ensure that there's going to be enough for that person to live off of if they needed long-term care, nursing homes, anything else that could be a costly situation in retirement. And in those cases, I would say we've even done them on Zoom. Sometimes a child's out of state. We can easily bring them in virtually nowadays to be able to be in on the meeting. So a lot of times, or even just by phone, just phone them in the middle. So that way they at least are up to speed on the general plans or what, other pivotal decisions might need to be made by that elderly parent or loved one.
Yeah, and I would just add, a lot of people take the time to make a plan. They name their successors or their beneficiaries or their heirs, but they don't necessarily take the time to fully communicate to them if they have a role or responsibility once that person passes, where all the assets are. There's different levels at different points where people feel comfortable bringing some of their heirs in for that conversation. Sometimes it's telling them the exact amounts, the account numbers, where everything is. Sometimes it's saying, hey, we don't need to go over everything today, but just to let you know everything is in this binder, or all the documents you need are in this place. When it comes time, call Ryan and Melissa. We can, we know what the plan is. We can make sure they're in the loop. A lot of times with estate plans, we see people forget to do that. And then in addition to grieving and to worrying about getting everything, they have to wonder if there's anything else out there that they didn't know about. It can be very stressful. And a lot of times it's not what the, original, person intended. They wanted their heirs to get that with, get those assets with no issue or no worry, and not worry that there might be something else floating out there.
So we've covered a lot about planning and doing things. One thing that I wanted to talk about, a lot of people have a lot of questions about what, maybe we can't say what we're doing now, but people are always looking to prepare for hard times. So are there things that you suggest or options for if people feel like have some fear or are afraid that maybe hard times are coming, whether they are or not, what they're, how to manage those fears?
Sure. So in general, the way we think about planning or managing investments is we're not just looking at what we think is going to work now. We also try to stress test it against different environments that have happened in the past. No one has a crystal ball. No one knows exactly what's going to happen. No, we know history.
Nice.
Things sort of rhyme, but nothing ever exactly happens twice. But we just try to be prepared for every scenario. So part of that is, diversifying the different types of property and investments you have and the institutions you keep it at. So just having some diversity as to what you have and where that's held at.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I think kind of a good analogy that we'll see, so in those types of situations, we usually suggest to people, since plans are longer term focused, that staying the course is really important, especially during volatile economic times. And with that in mind, we kind of compare it to a sporting event, let's say basketball, baseball, that you're at a game and it's let's use baseball as an example, a couple innings in, and you make this plan for what you're going to do when you're on the field, these players that they're going to go out there, and it's for the whole game. It's not just for an inning by inning, and that if you get 2 innings in and decide, oh, this isn't working, you can make tweaks or update, but you're not going to completely say scrap it, we're not going to keep playing them, we're done, we're leaving the game.
Right.
The point is that you want to see it through and play all 9 innings or however many it would go, and that the idea is you want to stick with your plan and give it time to work, because we'll constantly see people say, oh, I tried that for 3 weeks or a month or 2, but a lot of strategies are not built for that short of a time frame, and that you really need to give yourself a long time period to really see it through before making an analysis on if it worked or not, because things are always changing in the environment, and we really believe that people that do the best that we've seen are the ones that don't let their emotions control or dictate a situation, and that they hold firm with their plan ongoing.
That's great advice. And, they're one of our trusted advisors for everything that has to do finance, and it's been a pleasure to work with them. We're How to Help Mom. We're your one-stop shop to get connected with wonderful vendors like this. What is the best way for us to have people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So our website for our company is makinginvestingpersonal.com. We have multiple offices actually in Michigan and Ohio. And I know that for us, we are available to speak by phone, by email, by Zoom, or even coming out to locations that are more convenient besides our office for individuals. So we're very happy to be accommodating in whatever is the easiest way for them.
Awesome. That's great to know. Well, Ryan, Melissa, thank you so much for coming for us today.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Sarah.